This is the video review of the 3D printed giant hammer for Legacy Bulkhead and the chainsaw sword 3D printed for Megatronus from Age of the Primes. So you can see how these, you might have seen these on eBay, but you can see how they look in their hands, or you might have saw them on AliExpress. So basically we'll just answer the question of whether these are worth the price. They're both about 30 bucks after shipping and taxes. So are these any good or not? Okay, let's start with bulkheads. And right away you can see there's an issue of this shaft is really too weak to be holding up the weight of the hammer. So the material they used here is just really too cheap to really do what it needs to do. But he does look pretty good with the weapon in hand. You don't really need to have these blast effects. So you just leave those off. And that kind of helps with the weight a little bit. But it still does bow under the weight. So yeah, the color matching is pretty decent. There's a little bit of maybe like a yellow tint to this and more of a brown tint to him. On camera it's looking actually pretty good. So yeah, very nice color matching. And then we just go ahead and remove this pommel piece. And you can see they do this weird thing where they put like little slots in the 5mm ports. And I guess that helps keep the friction in place or whatever. And then this shaft is just very, maybe because I had him posed with it for a couple days, it's deformed under the weight. But yeah, overall the hammer is looking pretty good, I would say. It does have some layer lines in it, but it's pretty clean. It's got like a matte finish, which is not my favorite thing, but I mean the figure himself is, I don't know, I guess he is a little bit glossy and satin, so probably would have made more sense to gloss this and might have made it feel a little bit more premium, because it does feel, literally it feels rough because it's matte. This piece also comes off and then you get this extra little peg. Not sure what you would do with this. Probably just like to store it on his back or whatever. It gives him like a little extension. But everything does part out pretty nicely. Yeah, I think they just maybe should have made these shafts out of a different material. And then there's this core piece inside the hammer. You gotta like open this up a little bit maybe to get it out. Which probably does something. There's probably like a way of storing this or doing something with it. Like maybe you could shove it in his chest or something. It's got some nice mechanical detail to it. It's not too bad looking. And then we get the fist blasters basically. And these, they don't feel great in hand, especially like this is really floppy. You can see they're just on there with friction. So this could have been designed better. They definitely needed maybe some posts to go through it, but it would have been hard to get to it just by the way that it's designed. So I'm thinking if I do keep this, I'll probably just glue it in place. But I do kind of like that they radiate out, but then they like crash into each other. So there's really no point in having this articulation. I think it's just to get it off of the hammer. And then there is a correct way of doing it, because you can see the post is offset a little bit. So there is a correct hand that these go into. So that's the wrong hand. So they are left and right oriented, so they're not interchangeable. Yeah, and I think this would just feel better if these things didn't just like flop around all the time. But yeah, you could see what he looks like with those in his hands. And I think this is one of the better Transformers figures that's come out in the past couple of years. He just feels nice and solid. So I think this is a pretty good addition to him. And then I think giving him more of that prime look is pretty good. So yeah, I think these are pretty nice additions, and then being able to make the hammers. And then as for the blast effects, these are also 3D printed, I would guess. They feel very hard. They feel like they're made out of acrylic or something. They have kind of that split 5mm posts. I think maybe painting these over in some gloss paint might give them a little bit more color, make them a little bit nicer. But I think the design of them is pretty good, actually. It looks kind of cool. It looks like a pretty solid blast effect. They are very sharp. They do feel kind of like little cactuses. But yeah, so not a bad set, but it is again $30, which is just a little bit too much for the quality you get this. Maybe if they had like a nice glossy finish, if the shaft of this was just better designed, if these weren't so tiny and very breakable looking, I think it could have been polished up a little bit. Maybe I'm spoiled because I had that KO Prime bulkhead that came with a hammer that is basically the same thing. And that hammer was just so much better. So if you can get that APC Toys bulkhead, he does come with a much better hammer, but they won't fit on this guy's hands though. So that's the nice thing about these. You'd have to make some kind of adapter. But yeah, $30. It's almost the same price as the figure himself. I would say you should probably not buy this unless you're really into this look, which I am. And of course I'm going to paint over this with gloss and then just glue these pieces on so they stop flapping around. And I think that will improve my enjoyment a lot. And then putting a gloss paint on these as well. Alright, and there it is in vehicle mode. There's probably better ways to attach it. But yeah, overall, I think if the fit and finish of this was a little bit better, if the tolerances weren't kind of off, like even this 5mm port just doesn't fit. Like everything is just a little bit too loose in places. I think if everything was a little bit tidier, this would be easily a thing you could recommend even for $30. But because it's just, the tolerances are just a little bit off, I would say probably save your money unless you're really into this look. And especially this one is really annoying because it keeps falling off. It just like falls off at a drop of a hat. Definitely needs glue. Alright, and let's take a look at this chainsaw. So, I love this thing. I've always had a weakness. This has always been my favorite weapon, no matter what the media is, but ever since like Phantasy Star Online, I've always wanted a weapon that looks almost just like this. It's just such a good representation. And this, they sell like different versions of this chainsaw. There's like a Tarn version and some other kinds, but this is from what I've seen online, from the pictures, this is the best looking one. And you can see the details are just very sharp. It comes with this chain, very excessively long chain. And at the end of it, it's got kind of this Decepticon emblem mace, which actually doesn't look like his head at all. So very different from the Transformers 1 movie. But you can see it just looks so good in his hands. It's just like made for this figure. And this figure is $50, which I think is a little too much. And after taxes and upcharges, he was more like $56, which is too much. But man, this chainsaw just really completes his look. And it was also like another $30 on top of that. So this is not a cheap accessory at all. But yeah, how can you deny just like how good this looks? And the coloring on the blade is very nice. It kind of gives you those flame kind of vibes to it. It's a nice metallic orange. And the chainsaw is just very thoughtfully done. Like the handle opens up and lets you slide it out of his hand. So you can see this piece articulates. It's a little bit, it's loose, so this will just constantly come unplugged. It doesn't plug in very well, but a little drop of glue there will probably help it out. But you can just see, like, this is beautifully done. It doesn't even look 3D printed, and it's got a very excellent paint job on it. Like, you really can't complain. You can kind of tell that this handle is 3D printed because it's got layer lines, but look how nice this print is. Okay, well, it's got that flaw there, but it's just really beautifully done. I didn't know 3D print could be this nice. And then the chain itself is also really beautiful. Like, it's kind of a black paint on it. And it's got kind of these squarish kind of links. And then the Decepticon logo is very clearly copyright infringement, looks very nice. This looks like it could just be like a necklace itself or a little bracelet that somebody could wear. But yeah, really nice. It's got like this other handle so he can hold it either of those ways. So you can hold it kind of like upright and just like swat people with that. That looks pretty good, right? That looks pretty excellent. Or if you want him to hold it kind of like a chainsaw, he can kind of hold it here. I actually like to have him hold it here. This isn't technically a handle, but I think that looks more like a chainsaw look if you have him hold it there and then have his other hand like go across. And because he's got these nice butterfly joints because of his transformation, you can easily get his hands into the position you need to make this look convincing. So there you go. He can hold it like this, which looks basically perfect. Like this just adds so much value to this robot, in my opinion. I think I like him even more than I already did. Yeah, I think this is just epic. Definitely worth it. Worth the $30. It is expensive. It costs as much as like a Transformer figure, but you get pretty good value with this. And actually one of the 3D printed pieces did fall off. So this one is nicely painted. That's like this little handle detail right here. And that just like frictions right back into place. And then there are these 5mm pegs that are built in. So you can actually take these out and you can just post something in there if you want. But these 5mm pegs are very nice because you can use that to just like fasten this onto his forearm. And these ones, unlike the other kit I showed you, actually do have really nice tolerances. So he can just hold that there and it can just become his forearm weapon in this forearm, and then you can have his cannon on his other forearm. I know that's backwards, but that looks also excellent. I mean, look, I didn't even pose him. He just looks good no matter how you do this. This is just, I'm really thrilled with this set. Sometimes you just get a really nice upgrade kit that actually does upgrade the figure, and I think we can all agree that this really just improves him. And then of course you can use and of course this can become like a little mace that he twirls around and throws at his enemies. That would be very cool. So he can do that in his one hand, so that's pretty cool. And then you can, of course, just because of that 5mm peg, you can just peg this onto his backpack, and the friction is perfect. And of course it looks like it belongs there. Not sure about vehicle mode. Or maybe you could peg it in here and you can have this chainsaw as he's driving around and have the chains wrapped around his turret. That's very metal. That looks pretty cool. So yeah, there's definitely options on where you can peg this thing. You can peg it up here and have it like rotate back and forth. That's pretty cool. Or maybe you could even find a way to put on the turret. All his 5mm ports keep coming off. They're like stuck in here now and here. But yeah, obviously you know what my feelings are on this kit. If you've seen it and you've been wondering, I've got a very strong recommendation. You should get this one. But anyway, that's it, and I'll see you in the next one.